Good afternoon, Todd Spivey.
I just saw Mr. Colburn's pose over here doing yoga on a rock at putt-putt.
That's quite impressive. That takes glute strength, I believe.
Did you just nail a hole in one? Uh-oh, can't hear
Can't
you.
hear you. Still can't hear you.
How's that now?
That's
Boom,
much better.
nailed it.
I was saying something very unimportant, and that was a 10-minute pose. That's what it was on the yoga pose on the miniature golf course. So
That's impressive.
it's the
That's
constant.
very impressive. What's your record? What's your lowest round of mini golf ever?
Honestly, I am the worst at mini golf because it's nothing like real golf, and I know how to play real golf. So like I try to play real golf on a miniature golf course, and it never works. So I'm awful at miniature golf.
I'm not believing this. I've seen you play real golf, and it's the last thing I would categorize that as awful. Well, B-Dubs,
Yes, sir.
fired up to have you over there, buddy. We're looking forward to an awesome national call. We're going to get to hear from Mike and Jen Colburn and so many of their top leaders. And I know today's builders call, we had Nate Auffort on tap, but Nate's having some connection issues at the houses. Sarah Kate's been messaging me, letting me know. And so,
Yeah.
As always, who shows up when you need them most?
Well, out of any day, too, I was expecting to have connection issues here for all the Michigan and Midwest folks. We're having a massive ice storm right now. So my windows are coated with ice. And if you live in Minnesota, shout out to you. You're supposed to get like 2 feet of snow in an epic snowfall. So I was expecting connection issues, not in Texas, though. But yeah, here. Always at the
You're
ready.
going to get hit with this massive storm that they're all talking about, huh?
Yeah. Olivia had a snow day today, but it was perfectly clear this morning. But they were prepared for what we have now, which is kind of Snowmageddon and Iceageddon coming over here. So yeah.
Well, I hope you stay safe. I hope all our friends in
Absolutely.
the Northeast and Northwest that are going to be impacted.
Yeah.
Going to be in for a significant storm for sure.
Yes.
Well, guys, what we're going to do is we're going to pivot. We'll have Nate Auffort back on in a future builders call situation. But I know B-Dubs, we had a few seconds to catch up before the call.
Yeah.
And as always, we're constantly looking for agent activation and looking to improve in the way in which we engage with the individuals we bring along this journey. And I know somebody like yourself that's always got wisdom to share as well.
Yeah.
B-Dubs,
Absolutely.
what's on your heart?
Yeah, no, I'm excited today to spend some time. I want you to think about today's call like a builder's training session. Okay, we're going to go back into training mode. Are you able to see my screen? Okay, Spivey?
Nailed it.
Okay, good. And if some reason, if Nate pops on and we want to cut this short, we can do that and pick this up another time. But I want to talk to y'all today about becoming more coach-like. We know from research that when actually we can become people who are surfacing and listening to the true barrier or true learning opportunity of the person, the agent that we're seeking to activate, we're going to get significantly greater results, right? It's really important to think about coaching as it relates to performance. So what if you could unlock a way to help agents become more focused, happier, and more engaged? And as a result, you're going to scale leaders more effectively and efficiently, had more impact in the lives of people you invested in, had a more engaged, autonomous agent force, and dealt with less drama and gossip. Well, like Napoleon Dynamite would say, well, duh, right? And I want to go back to this slide for a second, because when we say this, it sounds very, it's to me, I play skeptic on myself when I train our leaders on this, because it sounds very cotton candy, unicorn, nice try, B-Dubs, that you're actually going to help us do these things. But the reality is this: when we become more coach-like as leaders, what it does is it creates ownership, initiative, and value in the lives of people you're leading. So when we become more coach-like, when we learn coaching behaviors, this is what it creates. It creates ownership in other people. They own the opportunity. How many of you have given direction to someone and they've come back to you 2 or 3 times for a reminder because they forgot it? And you're super frustrated as a leader simply because you're sitting there thinking, gosh, I told them that 3 or 4 times. How come they don't own it yet? Well, it's probably because of this reality, that directive leadership creates compliance, but it's coaching that creates ownership. Now, back in December 7th, 1992, when I put my footprints on the yellow footprints at Parris Island, South Carolina for Marine Corps boot camp, directive leadership was the exact perfect thing that the drill instructors that were charged with our care should be doing. They were absolutely 100% correct to be highly directive, highly prescriptive. I promise you, Spivey, they did not come up to me and say, hey, Recruit Williamson, what do you think about us putting you in the sand pit in 3rd Battalion, Platoon 3020, and you have these, you're going to have these sand fleas on your hands as you're doing push-ups, and they're going to bite you. It's going to be super annoying. What are your thoughts about that, Recruit Williamson? Well, sir, I'm not really feeling that today. I don't really think that that's going to be good for me, right? I promise you they didn't do that. Shout out to all the military people that got to endure some form of torture in boot camp, but it was the exact right thing. Sometimes in our leadership of agents and activating agents, right? You're coming onto the builders call. This is all about how do we build more effectively? How do we scale leaders more effectively? Sometimes directive leadership is the exact thing that needs to happen. If someone does not know what they're doing, we must be bold enough and confident enough to actually tell them what to do, right? And there's times where we don't want to waste time and actually get into a coaching conversation. But what coaching does, it allows us to surface the issues that are going on in people's lives, find out what the real problem is, because write this down if you've never heard this phrase before. Here it comes, right? Sometimes the presenting problem is not the real problem. And we would say this, that the problem well defined is the problem half solved. And what coaching does, it allows us to slow down long enough, to stay curious long enough to actually figure out what is the real problem here. What's actually happening? What's the real obstacle? What's the real barrier? And listen, right, Spivey, you and I have had lots of conversations. We're learning in the corporate office more and more how to really slow down to speed up, to be more effective, right? There's sometimes no other way to move forward than to slow down. There's sometimes no other way to add than to subtract, right? Sometimes you have to take things out in order to move ahead. So what these push-pull behaviors do is that these push-pull behaviors are coaching skills that we all must learn to get good at, which allow us to learn how do we get these outcomes. I'm going to go back to my cotton candy unicorn vision here, right? If we want to help people be more focused, if we want to help people be happier and more engaged, if we want to scale leaders, if we want to have more impact, if we want to have more engagement, our word of the year, and we want people to be more autonomous, meaning to make their own decisions, to figure it out on their own. If we want to deal with less drama and gossip, I promise you, coaching is your secret key to unlocking all of those things. And perhaps for some of us, this becomes the challenge, is that we've not learned the difference between the push-pull behaviors and when to unlock these. So we're going to go through today on this builder's call an assessment. We're going to do it fast and snappy, if you will. We're going to go through all 6 of these behaviors today as a training session for you to really level up these coaching skills to be more effective this week. So, Spivey, any thoughts before I jump in that's coming to mind as we think about all these new writers that we've had the privilege of seeing come in over the last couple of weeks? Any thoughts before I dive in?
Two things. One, I want to go back to the quote that I just wrote down and put on my desk, which is clearly defining the problem is already creating half of the solve. That is so good. It is so true. So many times in problem solving here at the corporate office, you and I are spending most of the time trying to actually identify what's the underlying issue and how do we get to this point, not just the symptoms on top. So to me, very powerful. And then I would say in looking at the onboarding process, really trying to take a deep dive and look into the agencies that identify exactly that, when to push, when to pull. I think John Wooden says it best. Everybody needs a slap on the back. Some need it high and some need it low. And I think that's a little bit of the push and pull we're getting into.
That is really good. I love that. Yeah. So let's track with this, everybody. These are what you're seeing here. I like to use the metaphor of a door. Some doors you push, some doors you pull. How many of you have actually pushed on a door that was a pull door and found out the hard way, or pulled on a door that was a push door, right? So knowing when you do the right action, it opens a door for you to walk through. Same thing here. The principles here are whenever possible, you want to pull before push. It doesn't mean that you never push, and we're going to see that in a minute, but whenever it's possible, you want to pull before push. You want to be able to engage and really truly understand what are the core issues. Again, the problem well defined is the problem half solved. And so when you pull, you can actually figure out what the challenge or problem to collaborate on is. And then you can push and collaborate together and use these different behaviors. So the pull skill sets are active listening, drawing people out and building common ground. And the push skill sets are giving your views and opinions, stating what you need and want, and using incentives and pressure. So we're going to walk through these, and I want you to do a little assessment, like a green, yellow, red type assessment as we go through these in the next few minutes together, and figure out, like, where are you with each of these skill sets, and which one would be the most important for you to work on right now in order to more effectively activate agents and engage agents in your next 90 days here. So let's just get into it. Green would be, man, that's second nature, super easy to do. Green, yellow, kind of like almost pretty easy, but there's one statement or one thought that is challenging. Yellow is 50-50, and then red would be, gosh, that's very, very difficult for me to access. Okay. So here's the first push skill set. How are you with giving your views and opinions, right? We have a lot of this, right? Here's what I think. It's important. It's important to be able to share your voice. What that looks like is, are you confident in your ability to humbly share your views and opinions? Are you able to offer your views and opinions in ways that create further possibilities rather than closing others down? Sometimes we share our views and opinions, and instead of unlocking and opening the door, it actually shuts the door because we're, adding too much, you have to do it my way to the conversation, right? So that's the second bullet. The third one says, are you sensitive to the amount of time that you talk for and avoid dominating the discussion? So this is green, yellow, red. You can be a little Bob Ross right now and make your painting. Give yourself an overall color for this particular skill set right now in your leadership. Where are you at with this one? And by the way, I'll make this available for everybody too. We've got a handout that goes with this where you can kind of keep this in front of you at your desk. Just like we did with the GWC last week and the file vault in Coolidge University. Happy to do that for what we're going over today. So give yourself a color. And I'm going to give myself a yellow on this one right now. I've noticed a lot, even in our executive team meetings where, hey, there's a lot going on, a lot of high level analysis and things. And I've been quieter, right, on the quieter side in my meetings, and it was maybe surprising for some of you, right? Like you're like, B-dubs can be quiet, and the answer is yes. But thinking through, making sure that I'm speaking out when I need to, right? Like these are just always good things for us to go through as we're doing this. So I'd say probably a yellow, probably yellow green. Maybe I'll give myself a little green on that. But that's how I want you to be thinking about this. Give yourself a color. Yeah, appreciate the response in the chat. Feel free to jump in and ask questions or chime in as well. All right, we're going to go on to the second one in a second. So you're just going to have to make a note on that one. We're going to move quick today. Second one is stating your needs and wants. How do you do with making the final decision when it's time to move to action? Sometimes we keep our options open for way too long. And sometimes we need to just say, this is what needs to happen and make the decision. How are you with drawing heated discussions to a conclusion and clearly communicating what is expected? Sorry, the font got cut off there. Clearly communicating what's expected from each person. And finally, how are you with avoiding confusion by not moving the goalposts once actions have been agreed upon? Those are the qualities of stating what you need and what you want. It's really important to go back to the big picture of the push-pull skill sets. Very important that we not only say, this is what I think, but as we're collaborating with our teams and listening, at some point, we've got to be able to say, all right, here's what I want. Other times it's asking them what they want. Most of the times in our kind of sales performance world, it's often that, right? We're helping people unlock what is it that they want and what is it that they need. So give yourself a color on this one. You're stating your needs and wants. How does this go for you? Are you able to do those things? Green, yellow, red. Give yourself a color. And then the final one is using incentive and pressure. So are you able to bring challenge in a way that empowers your team towards productivity and action, right? Sometimes, and some of you need to hear this, sometimes the reason for the lack of momentum in your agency is that your volume level on challenge is turned down to a 2 when it needs to be a 9. There is a time for high challenge, right? There is a time for high challenge. And for some of you, if you're high support leaders, which is very important, high support is, I would say, the foundation of bringing high challenge. It's more important to have a greater quantity of high support than there is high challenge as a foundation. I mean, that's just a proven research concept. But sometimes for some of you, your volume's on a 2 with challenge, and you need that boldness to say, I'm going to step in and challenge my team right now towards that productivity and action. Others of you, your challenge volume is at an 11 if you're a Spinal Tap fan, right? These amps go up to 11. And you need to turn it down to a 2 because it's all challenge, all about how you want it, right? And you've got to be careful, again, not only knowing yourself, but leading yourself. That's our core principle here. Secondly, are you able to encourage others to challenge your views and opinions without becoming defensive and playing the positional power card? Oh, whatever, that person doesn't know. They've only been here for 1.5 years. I've been here for 4 years, right? Those type conversations, we got to be careful and make sure that we do what I call powering down. We've got to power down our positional power and be able to kind of meet people in a humble way. And finally, are you able to tailor encouragement and incentives to the particular needs and motivations of your team? A lot of the tools and things that we're putting in the water system, if you will, are really all about how do we help you not only understand yourself, but other people to get the maximum impact and performance. So that's incentive and pressure. I know we're moving quick today, but we've got 3 more to get through. So that's the push skill sets. How's it going for you with the push skill sets? Giving your views and opinions, stating what you need and want, using incentive and pressure. Spivey, any thoughts for you? How's this going for you, or any observations you want to make on this?
I think it's there's an awareness that I'm having right now, what I'm thinking through, how I show up depending on how my schedule looks for the day and how busy I am. And it reminds me a lot of the conversations we have in our private coaching sessions when I have to remember how I show up and how my actions and reflections of my day are going to be seen and felt by the person that I'm coaching or working with at the time. And I think just having that awareness, and like you always say, to make sure that we're scheduling appropriately, to make sure that we're showing up and being our best selves when we're needed. Yeah.
So good. We're going to go on to the pull skill sets in a minute. Let me just leave that up for a second. One of the most important practices for all of the virtual work that we're doing, guys, use the 5 minutes at the end of a meeting. Like don't schedule a full hour meeting, schedule a 55-minute meeting, right? Like actually end it 5 minutes early. Give yourself breathing time to stand up to walk around, to actually be fully present. Because if you use those 55s, I call them, right? Using the 55s, you get that 5 minutes of, practicing some of the Jim Lair powerful engagement principles and being fully present. Really, really important. So yeah. And how we show up to the meetings on this is, it's a big deal, right? To be fully present. Okay. We're going to land the plane. We're going through the pull skill sets, right? The principle, wherever possible, you want to pull before push. We're trying to learn how do we become more coach-like? And often it's about these final 3 behaviors, right? Are you able to actively listen? And what that looks like is, are you able to be fully present and truly listen to the opinions and concerns of each team member, each agent, right? Are you able to truly be present, listen, and understand what the issue is? So often we've got all of these open tabs, open browsers in our mind. And I want you to really think about that. Open browsers. And I'm one of those people. I've got way too many tabs open on my computer, right? I've got 10 or 12 websites open that I'm going to come back to. When that happens in our mind, it's very difficult to be fully present with people. So that's an active listening skill. Secondly, are you able to avoid the temptation to respond in a way that draws the conversation back to being about yourself or a pressing organizational or agency need? Sometimes it's always comes back to us instead of them. So we need to ask the second or third question about that person. And then finally, are you able to demonstrate empathy and a commitment to truly understand the deeper issues behind particular behaviors? So if you're just joining us, you're going to give yourself a green if these are like second nature. You're saying, Brian, active listening is super easy for me. That's a green. Yellow is 50-50, and red is that's very difficult. So I'm always a red, yellow on active listening. I have to be very intentional about this one to truly be present and listen. So that's what the color code is. Give yourself a color for active listening. Super underutilized skill and super important skill. The second one is drawing out, right? Let's go back to the core axiom, right? The problem well defined is the problem half solved. Drawing out is really now drawing out what's the real issue here. So the first one skill here is, are you able to make every member of the team feel that their contribution is valid and sought after? Like it's truly you're interested in listening and caring for them and understanding them, right? Super important. Are you able to take the time to draw out people's true thoughts and feelings about a particular issue? And are you able to ask good questions that help clarify a particular viewpoint? All of those are part of the drawing out. You're fishing, right? You're finding out. Guys, this is fun. Actually, people development, leader development, agent development. It's actually kind of fun to stay curious and actually care about somebody long enough to hear their story, to find out like what's really going on. And just because people have been here 6 months or 1 year or 3 months or whatever it is, they still need to be understood and heard. And the skill set of drawing them out is super, super important. Okay, give yourself a color on this one. And finally, building common ground. So are you able to foster a team culture where all viewpoints are welcomed and encouraged? Adult maturity, right? That's going to be an important concept for us. Maturing as an adult, maturing as a leader, right? Just because we stop growing physically as an adult doesn't mean we're not supposed to grow emotionally and developmentally as an adult, right? So part of becoming a very mature adult is to understand where are the people coming from that are around me, even if we have clashing views, right? The more, bring on those different perspectives, some good stuff comes out of that. Second, are you able to lead a discussion toward consensus instead of people leaving polarized where you feel like we're against each other, right? That's a building common ground skill set. So shout out to all the connectors. If you know our 5 voice language, the connectors are really good at this, getting everybody on the same page. And finally, giving 100% to the agreed outcome, even if the final decision was not your preferred outcome. So how do you do with building common ground? There you go. Give yourself a color. These are the push-pull behaviors, which are an excellent coaching starting place. If you want to become more coach-like, learning to pull before push, learning to kind of gauge where am I at with each of these 6 behaviors and which one is your biggest growth opportunity will help you level up as a leader and get these, I'll call them, again, my cotton candy unicorn vision, which actually if you apply the push-pull behaviors, people are going to be more focused. They're going to be happier. They're going to be more engaged. Science tested, B-dubs approved, right? You're going to actually do better at scaling leaders. You're going to do better at impacting people. You're going to get people being more autonomous, meaning making their own decisions. And you are going to deal with less drama and gossip if you learn how to pull before push. Final thought before we go into the national call, which is upon us here. All I would ask of you today, call to action. Which one of these 6 is your biggest growth edge right now? And if you focus on that, so for some of you, it's active listening, and you need to slow down and truly actively listen. Others, it might be drawing people out and truly asking second and third questions to get to the problem that's well defined so you can have the problem half solved. For others, it's going to be speaking up. It's going to be actually giving your view and opinion. It's going to be stating what you need and want. It's going to be turning the challenge volume from a 2 to a 10 or a 9. And that would make so much difference for some of you in the life of your agency right now. For others, you're on the spinal tap. This amp goes up to 11 on challenge, and you need to go down to a 2. So hopefully today, this is a training that adds massive value to you. I know that it will. It won't be the last time you hear of it. So I was glad to get to review with you the push-pull behaviors. Give me a shout out of how it benefited you. And Spivey, I think we are getting real close to the national call. So
Well
mission
done,
accomplished.
B-dubs. Appreciate it. Got great notes over here as well. And like we talked about, just me trying to own my schedule instead of my schedule owning me allows me to show up and be so much more present in my conversations. And to, I feel like when I'm pushing more than I should be pulling, it's oftentimes rooted in the fact that I feel like I already know where the conversation or the answers are going to be.
That's
And
right.
I'm trying to cut through the fluff and get right to what maybe my expectations or what my thought process is instead of actively listening. So I got some takeaways myself there, buddy. I appreciate it.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, we even ended early today. How's that? We're giving ourselves not quite the 55s, but we gave ourselves at least 60 seconds. Now we're on it. But
Nailed it. Nailed it.
Casey, over to you guys.